Hiya, hope you're well. I'm going to do a review of a new album. This might be the first time I've really done this. I think I've talked about new records before, plural. I talk about new releases and recent records that I've picked up. But I'm going to talk about just one album today by an artist that I really appreciate and respect, and that is Kieran Hebden, aka Fortet. I really like this guy. He's a hell of a nice guy, just generally, forgetting about his music. He's just a very nice person. I've met the guy a number of times, and he's also a fantastic producer. He really has never put out a bad album, and he's been making music for over 25 years now. And so, just as a motion of respect, I wanted to make a video about the mighty Fortet. And he has a new album out, and I've been listening to it off and on over the past couple of days. I think it came out just this past week. I mean, it's a new album, and I don't have a physical copy of it. You're not going to be seeing me show anything in this video. It's it's all of Fortet's catalog is on Apple Music. And I got Apple Music pulled up on my computer. You can't see it, but right here beneath me, I'm going to talk about some of the tracks. I'm just going to go over his catalog as I'm looking at his records here. He's got a lot of good stuff. As I just said, he's never put out a bad album, and I think Fortet's one of those guys who has a very unique sound. I think a lot of people don't. I think maybe some people see him as not a true dance guy, or because he's not underground or something. I've heard this said before, but I don't agree with that. I think Kieran Hebden makes fantastic electronic music, and it happens to be more popular than most, and I think there's good reason for it. I think he makes very unique dance music. He's made some of the hardest techno jams I've ever heard, but he also can shift gears on a dime and do something heart-achingly beautiful. He can do down tempo, he can do ambient, he can do broken beat, he can do techno, he can do house. He's just that talented. He loves music, and you can hear it bleed through in his own sounds. So anyway, I'm going to talk about his new album 3, and I'll post that cover right here somewhere in this area here so you can see the cover. I love the new album. I think people who appreciate Fortet's old sound, his classic sound, basically anything he did up to the album Pink. This is just an opinion, but I've listened to his music closely over the years. I feel like I know what I'm talking about here. He had a sound that first decade or so of him making music. He did have a very distinct sound, and then it kind of shifted a little bit a little over a decade ago. I think 3, for those who really enjoy that early sound, are really going to like this album, especially fans of the album Round or Everything Ecstatic. Those albums, I think people who enjoy that stuff will really find a lot to love about 3. But what I think 3 is really good at, it's Hebden marrying his old sound with the new sound. I think he's finally found a sweet spot. I don't know that he's been interested in finding the sweet spot, because he's been doing a lot of just straight up techno over the last decades, which I love. I have no problem with that. In fact, I prefer his later stuff to his earlier stuff. I still love his earlier stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. I love it. But I prefer the harder techno vibe he's had over these past decades. In fact, the past decade, I should say. In fact, my favorite album of his is probably Pink. I mean, maybe that changes with 3. I haven't even had a week with 3. Music tends to grow on me. I think we're most of us are like that. Music grows on us. So I don't know. Maybe if I listen to 3 for another couple months, that might be my favorite Fortet album. I think generally though, Pink is my favorite of his. It just hits that sweet spot for me. I think it's his most intense, just blatantly techno album he's ever done, and I like that. I think New Energy, that's another album I think that came out when 2018, I want to say. Let me look here. 2017. New Energy is another favorite of mine. I think Pink and New Energy are way up there for me, and Rounds too. I mean, Rounds has been out. That album came out well over 20 years ago. In fact, let me look here, 2003. So just over 20 years ago, man. It's crazy to think that that album has been in my life for that long. But I think going back to what I said earlier, if you enjoy that sound from that area, rounds in particular, I think you're going to find a lot to love about three. Three is you do find some techno on it, but I think for the most part, the album is a very down tempo, ambient affair. Beautiful melodies, beautiful production. Hebden obviously has become a master at what he does. His productions never sounded better. And the new album is really just extraordinary. I really like it. I've heard it probably 3 or 4 times already this week, and it's excellent. I'm looking at the track listing here. I would say, I don't know. I always try to pick a favorite track, but that's not really fair, right? I think maybe my favorite tracks are 31 Bloom, which is the sixth song on here. That's more of all the songs on here, that's the one straight up techno track, but it is one of my favorites. And then the last one, Three Drums, which is a down tempo, more ambient affair. It's also the longest song on here. I like it when Hebden kind of stretches his legs and gives himself time to breathe. It lets his music stretch out. I think that's why I like Pink so much. The songs are kind of long. They're all kind of 9, 10 minutes ish. This album's a pretty brief affair. As I look at it here, it's 8 songs, 45 minutes, so it's not a lot of music. It's all right. It's still excellent. Songs like Loved, I'm going down through the track listing here. Gliding Through Everything, Storm Crystals, Daydream, Repeat. Again, if you like albums like Rounds and Everything Ecstatic, and even Dialogue, his first album, which came out on Output Recordings, by the way. That was Trevor Jackson's label. I don't know that Output is still around, but some of you might remember Trevor Jackson. He recorded as a Playgroup. Anyone who remembers Make It Happen, which was a huge track back then. But he had his own label. I think Output's still around, actually, now that I think about it. But Kieran Hebden's first stuff came out on Output Records, and Dialogue was his first album. His early stuff was very jazz influenced. It was electronic. It had a lot of, techno and house and ambient vibes, but it also was very jazzy in nature. In fact, his first album really, I mean, it was an EP, but it was called 3625, and it was one song that was 36 minutes and 25 seconds long. And it basically was just this long, extended, jazzy, ambient vibe. And I still think it's one of his best releases. Love that. Love that record. In fact, that's more in line with some of the stuff he's done with Fridge. Fridge is the band that Kieran Hebden was in prior to him breaking off into Fortet, where he records alone. And Fridge is excellent too. You should check that out. In fact, and this reminds me, one of the other members of Fridge, his name's Adam. He also, does he still have a solo career? I don't know. But he's put out a number of solo albums that are awesome. Awesome. And a totally different vibe. Adam puts out folk music. But it's kind of steeped a little bit in electronics. Like he does that a little bit, but it's basically just folk music, traditional folk music, and it's gorgeous, man. Adam is a great songwriter, beautiful voice. Is he still doing solo stuff? He put out a solo album not quite 10 years ago, and then I haven't heard anything from him since. Is he still around? Adam, where are you, buddy? His first solo album called Home Songs, beautiful stuff. His second solo album, I want to say it's called Love and Other Planets. Love and Other Planets, right? Beautiful. Beautiful. His first two solo albums are absolutely gorgeous. And then he put out an album of cover versions called Takes, I think it was called. And he covers bands like Aphex Twin to Yola Tango to Low. He's all over the place. And it's great. I normally don't like cover albums, but anyway, sorry, I know this is about Kieran Hebden, but Adam comes from that world. He comes from Fridge, and that's where Kieran Hebden comes from. So anyway, back to three. I think three is going to really please those fans who really like Kieran Hebden's late 90s, early thousands stuff because it's just that a lot of gorgeous, heart aching melodies, lots of broken beats, lots of ambience. Very, it's mood music. It can be kind of dark, but I think This is where Kieran Hebden's music is really special to me, is he can shift gears really quickly. When he does his ambient stuff, his music's very uplifting. Like it tugs on your heartstrings. It can be sad, but his music always seems life affirming. It always seems very uplifting, particularly when he's doing ambient stuff. When he's doing the techno stuff, it's more dark and foreboding and hardcore. And then he just shifts gears and he does this ambient thing, and it's really lovely music. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I've met Kieran Hebden a few times. We had a mutual friend here in the Portland, Oregon area, and I hung out with him a few times. And Hebden is just a fucking nice person, man. Really funny. Got a great sense of humor. He's a very thoughtful person. And I think this is one of the reasons maybe I love his music so much, is because I got to know him personally a little bit. And he's just a lovely guy. He's a very nice person. And so to hear his music be so lovely, you can't help but kind of let it warm your heart a little bit. Three, his most recent album, is an excellent record. I don't think anyone who's a fan of Kieran Hebden's music is going to be disappointed in the least. In fact, I would think three would be a bit of a bridge album. I think he might get a lot of people who liked his early stuff more liking his later stuff more. And I think people who have liked his later stuff more might start appreciating his earlier stuff more. You know what I'm trying to say? He's marrying all of his different sounds over the years into one whole here, into one 45-minute slice of music. And it works. That's the most important thing, right? Does the album work? I think it does. I think it does. Each song flows flawlessly into the next. And then it crescendos, and really arguably the best track on the album. What was it called? Three Drums. It crescendos into three drums and then just kind of floats away, and it just leaves you wanting more. And I love albums like that. I love double albums and triple albums too. I love really having a lot of music to sink my teeth into. I also love brief albums that leave you wanting more. And that's what this album does. Fortet's 3. I hope people check it out. I can't imagine many Fortet fans are not going to check it out, but if you've found over the years that you've seen his name pop up on stuff and you haven't given him time, check out the new album. I think you'll like it. And I talk about electronic music a lot on this channel, and I feel like the majority of people who subscribe to my channel trust my judgment here. I think you'll like it. Kieran Hebden makes a lot of different types of music and different styles, and I think that's why some people may have a harder time getting into his music. He's got plenty of fans. I'm just talking very specifically to people who haven't given him time yet. Give him some time on this one. Check out 3. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think most people, when they listen to music, they want to hear melodies and rhythm and harmonies all mixed together well, and that's exactly what 3 is, but with a little bit of personality to it. At least a little bit, right? You want some individuality to it. And Kieran Hebden is bleeding with individuality. His records have a ton of soul to them. In fact, that's another, I mentioned he makes ambient and techno and downbeat and even hip hop stuff. Throw soul in there too. There's another genre you can throw into his big heady stew of types of music that he makes. His music's very soulful. But more than anything, like there's certain artists out there, I think that when you hear their music, you can hear them loving other music. You hear his other influences. He loves music, this guy. And you can hear it all percolating on the surface. There's all kinds of different things going on, all working together in harmony. It's a beautiful thing. And I think you should check out Fortet 3. That is my recommendation for this week. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think about it. If you go and listen to it, if you're good enough to take my advice, which I would be very humbled if you did, let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys think. His music's really lovely, and the new album 3 personifies that. It's a good indication of how brilliant this guy is. He's a fantastic electronic music producer, and you need his music in your life. Kieran Hebden, Fortet 3. Enjoy. Bye.